everybody, I'm Stuart Payne from Neo Technology. I'm the strategy director, and today we're talking about my most favourite subject, which is sales and marketing. I've got Fran on the chat, so please, any questions or any feedback throughout the webinar, please get on the chat. Fran will be more than happy to engage with you. And there will be some documents that you can also request, and we'll talk about those as we go through the process. And then I've also got Ahmed in the house, who is manning YouTube and LinkedIn Live for me. So a little bit of support this time, and let's hope it all goes well. So I'll just keep chatting for a few minutes just to give time for people to get in the room, and then we'll start to talk about what you can do to improve your sales and marketing efforts in a digital world. So whilst we're waiting, I would just like to know if anybody's in the UK, whereabouts, and or the rest of the world. Stick it in the chat, let us know where you guys are coming from. It's always intriguing to know who we are, or I am talking with through these webinars. It's Monday today, and I was just saying I've got that Friday feeling. I've got a short week this week, so I'm taking Thursday and Friday off for some well-earned rest and recuperation. So we all need a bit of R&R, don't we? Okay, so we're 16:01. I'll still just give it one more minute, and then we'll crack on. Hi, Danny from Bingley. Good to see you here. And Nancy from Leeds or Manchester or Macclesfield. Welcome. I hope you enjoy the conversation that we're going to be having. I'll just give it one more minute. Oh, we've also got Samuel from Chipping Norton down in Oxfordshire. Nice to see you guys. I'm here today in the Pinnacle, so I'm on the 17th floor of I wouldn't quite call it a skyscraper, but a building in Leeds city centre. Overlooking the town, or the city, should I say. Okay, so we're going to get into it. We're going to start going through the webinar, and I suppose really the purpose of this webinar is to show you how sales and marketing has changed radically, certainly since COVID. And apparently Fran's just telling me I'm in the 5th tallest building in Leeds. There you go. But I'm not on the top floor, so I'm probably not the highest I could be. Anyway, so sales and marketing has changed forever, certainly since COVID. People working from home a lot more, a significant amount more. And yeah, it's changed forever. Demand generation is the new kid on the block, and it's predominantly been driven by technology and people building their personal brands. So, first slide. As we get into this, the clicker isn't working. So I just want to make sure that you all understand really the benefits of technology, digital technology in the sales and marketing arena. So just to pull out a few really serious, quite massive figures, but using intent ranked data increases response rates by 200%. Hyper-personalized web content improves conversion rates by over 200%. And behavioral based email, and I'll talk a little bit about that as we move through the webinar, gets a much higher click-through, and that's about tracking behavior of people online in terms of them engaging with your content. So the use of website interactions to send direct mail, so offline communications, also gives 7 to 10 times return on investment. That's a significant figure. And there's a few hyper digital based companies out there who are using physical mail to drive conversations online and acquire new business. And then obviously marketing automation can save you a significant amount of time. Now, these statistics are not my statistics. It's not something that I've made up. They come from Experian and VentureBeat and Gartner. So, you know, these guys are investing a hell of a lot of money into research to prove these numbers. So I'm just going to go now onto here. So what I really want to talk about is the old way of doing things. And so you'd have people on telephones all of the time, making phone calls, trying to get through reception to get meetings, and then hope that you've been somehow influenced with an advert or that you've seen them at an event, etc. And then hopefully they'd reach out and start talking to you and saying, okay, I want more information on this. And you turn up with your brochure and your PowerPoint deck, and you'd start showing them the whys and wherefores of your product. And so predominantly salespeople were product specialists, and that's how they sold and built their own personal brand and built trust with those prospects, and hopefully then converted them to customers. Well, the world has changed. It's not like that anymore. And that's because the internet came along yeah, things radically changed. So now people go onto Google, Bing, or whoever their browser, and then they start to Google solutions to their pain points. And when they're doing that, they're starting then to go and transform themselves. They're going through that journey of awareness and consideration 85% of the time, 85% of that journey on their own. And then they're only reaching out right at the last minute. So that last 15%. And essentially what that means is that you can't influence or build your awareness in that consideration phase. So it becomes a conversation around, this is what they want, and here is the price or the best price point. So you don't want to do that. You know, you want to influence and help them through that awareness and consideration phase. And then they'll reach out to you and say, actually, I trust you, I know you, and I'm happy to buy from you because you are an expert. Or you are at least knowledgeable enough to deliver the service I'm looking for. So in order to do that, you need to be able to be omnipresent. And I'll talk a bit about what that involves and how you can start to build that through this awareness and consideration phase. Because that's how you're going to get growth. That's how you can structure your sales and your marketing strategy, or should I say your marketing and your sales strategy, to then deploy activity that's actually going to get a return on investment. So Gartner, and these are just backing up some of the stats that I've already spoken about, but Gartner are saying that 85% of B2B sales interactions will be in digital channels. And I think that, you know, they were forecasting that by 2025, and I suspect that actually we're probably already there. Certainly when I'm looking at prospects for Neo technology coming through, who's visiting the website, who's downloading our content, it's a significant amount in comparison to any other channel. And if you think about the telephone, nobody really rings you up and says, can you come and see me? So 60% of B2B sales organizations or sales departments will be transitioning from that intuition-based selling to data-driven selling. And what does that mean? Well, it means that you can start to really measure the intent of the prospect once you've identified who those prospects are. But you can start to then actually drive demand by being data-focused. So we're going to talk a little bit about that as well. So really what you want to do though is mine the data out of LinkedIn. And I would suggest Sales Navigator is a brilliant tool if you know how to use it properly. So that you can start to identify those prospects that actually are your ideal customer. And you can do that pretty much en masse within Navigator. But then leveraging that outside and into different channels is tough. You'll need other software to be able to mine that data. And then, sorry, I've just got a question here from Shane on YouTube. And so they're saying, what's the #1 way to engage prospects? Well, from my perspective, there is no #1 way. The #1 way is to be omni-channel and target them through all channels, because that way you're going to build your brand and watch their engagement, sense check their engagement, and actually react to that engagement to get more engagement. I hope that makes sense. But essentially, the beginning of that process is identifying your demographic, who you are going to talk to or want to talk to, and then searching for them in Navigator, and then mining their email addresses and their phone numbers in a GDPR compliant way. And there are tools to do that. But if you reach out to us, we can talk to you about those tools, about what that technology is and how it works. And that way then you can start to push them through your funnel as they go down through those channels to become a one-to-one conversation. So what I'm going to do now is just show you a little workflow to get things moving and to start you thinking about how you might be able to do that for yourselves. So here we are. So get that brand proposition piece correct in the first instance. You need to know what your customers are wanting to buy from you, or what the pain they're going to want you to solve in delivery of your solution. So a brilliant example, I was at an event last week and I met, I don't know, maybe about 40 people every 15 minutes. I was meeting another organisation or another person to have a conversation with. And we were talking very much about not being able to find the right technologists, wanting to achieve greater customer engagement or satisfaction, how to get more revenue. And so I could trial all of these things with all of those people I was seeing. So that's a great way. You know, you could run a workshop with your customers and talk to them to do that investigation work. So once you've got that proposition right and you know what your customers are buying and you've got that persona identification, then you can start to really look at what those people are interacting with. So again, going back to the 85% who are now online Googling solutions to their pain points, to their problems, you need to understand what they are looking for, what they're searching for, what's trending in that space, in your space, in the sector, what webinars they're watching. And if you start to understand that, then you can actually go onto LinkedIn and start looking at the webinars that are in your sector, the ones that have got 300, 400, 1,000 people signed up to them. That's not just a sign that the webinar's being run well, it's a sign that there's demand for that discussion topic. And that way you can start to drive your own content around that discussion topic. So you can actually then start to see what people are watching online. You can see those people. If you join, if you sign up to an event, you can see all the people in those events and then start to reach out to them yourself. You can also obviously monitor what's going on online in the world and start to create your own trending topic, your own content and your own webinars. So when you get all of that information and you put it into your database or your CRM, and you've got all that intent tagged in terms of what they've been watching, looking at, etc. All of a sudden then, if you think, you could have a really insightful conversation. It's not just about, hi, I'm Stuart Payne from Neo Technology and we sell technology solutions anymore. It's not that at all. It's a conversation around, hi, I saw that you were looking at this, or I saw that you attended this webinar as I did. I wondered what your biggest takeaway was from that webinar, and actually get into a conversation with somebody who's got the right persona identification, who's reading the right content and showing real intent to buy. And going through that process, you can then really start to get the growth and the demand generation pushing through, because you're giving them that content. You're earning the right to be at the table. You're becoming an advisor, and they're starting to trust you. And then using marketing automation and marketing technology, you can look at who is reading your documents and start to, again, invite them to webinars, look at who's attending your webinars, and then start to push them through your sales funnel. And that's absolutely vital then, to then get that lead and client engagement tracking on the go. And the reason that I was splitting that into two parts, lead and client, is because you will have them both online at some point on a webinar. Now, all of this, running it through some technology, is going to give you that improved sales efficiency. So I've got Harrison from Bristol asking me, how do you seek out the prospects with real intent? Well, I've kind of been through this process. So essentially, they're reading other people's content. They're downloading guides that you have created, and I'll show you a content plan and how to do that shortly. And then you're looking at who's clicking and opening different emails, who's attending webinars, etc., who's requesting information from a webinar. And that way you're looking for people who have that level of intent. So Donovan, that's how to do it, but in an omni-channel way. So what are the core channels that you might want to talk about? So these are the key channels for me that I think I'm going through. Great service gets you referrals. Referrals are so much more likely to convert than any other channel. And all you need to do that, and I say all is tough, your organization needs to be good enough to deliver brilliant service so that you can then talk to your customers and ask them for referrals. And you know what? Everybody's shy to do that. Well, actually, you can automate the process. You could have a predefined email, and after a certain period of time has lapsed of these clients being a customer, it would automatically send them an email saying, would you mind? That would be fantastic. And then it obviously comes back to you. If they read the email, you get a notification, and on you go. The second biggest earner for me in terms of marketing at the moment, in terms of then getting follow-up meetings and growth, is live events. So that's face-to-face and webinars. But obviously, you've got to build up your reputation and get people either on your stand or to your webinars. And there's a whole piece around that. You know, my team, thanks to them so much, you know, they put a lot of effort into trying to get people to these events that we are attending or holding. And then obviously PPC, SEO. I don't know if I need to go into too much into PPC and SEO. You know, on the chat, if you don't understand anything about it, ask Fran, and we can send you a document on it. But the whole point of all of these interactions, you know, through email, webinars, face-to-face events, PR events in terms of articles in magazines and being featured, is that actually when you finally get to a point where you're making a phone call, either they're ringing you and reaching out to you to say, actually, can we have a conversation? Or when you ring them, they know who you are. Yeah, they know a little bit about you, your company, the pain that you're going to try and solve or take away from them. Or if you are then getting to a point where you're making a phone call, it's not cold, you've got a conversation, you know the intent level of that person. So I've tried to then redefine a funnel, because a funnel doesn't necessarily, in my opinion, show you the actual journey of a customer. Yeah, that's assuming they're going to go from A to B to C to D. It doesn't work like that. Yeah, actually what has to happen is that a number of actions, a number of issues, maybe even within their organization, have to collide. And so that's what this is showing you. We're showing you the interest and awareness. We're looking at the customer research, our own outreach. We're looking at where people are in this discovery phase. And even then, if they then have a problem, so they have a customer experience issue, at some point then, the point that you'll get to a pinpoint of pressure where they want to reach out, and they've been influenced by you because you've been doing LinkedIn outreach. You've been posting your content on social, on LinkedIn, on Facebook, etc., or TikTok. Or your ads have been there, or you've held multiple webinars and they've been learning from you and they now want to reach out to make that purchase. You've earned the right to be at the table. So there's a lot of things going on here. If you think you've got LinkedIn outreach, social posts, telephone, emails, webinars, PPC. Everybody always talks to me about how do you generate all of that content. So you have a plan. We have a plan. So within my organization, within Neo, we have a team, and this is what we look to generate on a bi-monthly, 2-month cycle. So what we are doing in this process is generating content based on trending content, events, life, and our own company information and updates, because some people like to know what they're getting into in terms of they like to know a little bit about the personality of the organization as well as the individuals. So we set out to write a blog every week, and you can see here then we're saying 8 ebooks or blogs a week, and we're choosing the topic sectors. Now, those topics are based on the pillars that our organization is structured around, but also in terms of what topics are trending. And then we break these down into social posts. Over time, we'll aggregate all of these into a white paper, and we'll break them down into email campaigns, each time looking at the content and how it's getting engagement online. And then we'll also do press releases, because we want to influence the people reading the magazines to go online. And that's the biggest source of intent for me, is who's going online and reading articles either via LinkedIn in a smart link or on my website, who's downloading documents, etc., etc. And measuring all of that and seeing those individuals is absolutely vital if you've got any chance at all of getting them into that continuous education process about you, your organization, and your solutions or your services that you're selling. So just going back a little bit now, where are all these prospects? Well, on here it says 600 million global B2B prospects. There's actually probably something more like 740 million global B2B prospects now. They're all interacting pretty much on LinkedIn from a B2B perspective, and even from a B2C perspective. Yes, they might be selling to through Facebook, through TikTok, etc. But in general, if you wanted to sell to those individuals, that first port of call is to see where they are on LinkedIn. Get some background history, look at who they've worked for before or what they've done if they're an entrepreneur before, because that way you can actually have an insightful conversation. And even when you're driving an email campaign, you can actually take some of those snippets and push them into that email campaign so that you're making it hyper relevant, hyper personalized, and it doesn't look like a standard BOGO email campaign. It's a personalized piece of work. So then take your trending topics, look at what groups these people are in, and really start to look at even then what they're commenting on, who they are, what they're reading online, and then invite them to those webinars, invite them to your webinars and events based on the webinars and events that they are attending. And you can really pull and refine that data through a funnel or a filter to take out all of the ones that are not of relevance to you. There's no point in wasting your time selling to somebody who has no intent. So I've got Harrison again asking about how many interactions would you typically expect to have with a prospect before you get to a meeting. And the answer to that is actually, I would love to say it's about 12 touch points sometimes, and I've seen it where it's 40 or 50 touch points. Because actually, if you go back to the slide with the infinity loop on it, let's do that, and we can sort of see what we're talking about. Sometimes the timing just isn't right for these people, and therefore their intent is capped. And then something will happen and they will get in touch with you and agree to that meeting. So I'd like to say 12 points, but in reality, it could be 40. Okay, so I mentioned earlier trending topic clusters. And this is a case of sitting down and identifying what that content is around your business. Now, you may well have already done some of this work if you've built a new website for yourselves, because you've already, or should have, worked out what people are interested in regarding your business. But you can start by drawing a simple spider diagram and listing. There's research documents online that you can go and find, or you can ask Fran and we'll send you some, and you can start to see what your audience is looking at online and aligning it to your organization. So I would suggest that you should have at least 5 trending topic clusters within your organization. And that gives you, that's your starting point for your content creation and that consistent outreach. Because once you're doing that consistent outreach, and this isn't rendering very well on my screen, so once you're doing the consistent outreach, this is hyper-personalized emails, this is website visitor tracking, and then sending them and making sure that your prospects are getting the trending content and what they're downloading, and then using automation engines to use the AI-based follow-up. And that's all around being efficient. You can't do all of this work yourself. It's massive and you need some support. Technology can help you do that, as well as a great team. And make sure that your LinkedIn outreach is personalized or personal. You know, blanket stuff just doesn't wash anymore. We'll leave that to the dinosaurs that aren't on this webinar. And if they ever join, maybe we'll reinvent them and move them on. So, in essence, and just summarising really where we're at and what we've been talking about up to now, you know, it's a case of being omnipresent through the awareness and consideration phase of your prospect. So making sure that your content is out there, they're digesting it and they're reading it and they trust you as a source of the truth, as a source of how you can or they can solve their problem. So know who and where they are. That's straightforward. But again, if you're not sure, book a call with me. I'm happy to go on Navigator and show you how to do a search. I'm happy to go through how you could influence them and go through the groups or the social media and the email that they're using. And then start to create the trending, insightful and engaging content. And go back to that funnel that I showed you, our workflow around ebooks, blogs, white papers, etc. Because you don't have to create everything all at once, an ebook becomes a post or becomes multiple posts. Yeah, a post can become the part of or form part of an email campaign, and you can link them all back to each other and let people click on smart links through LinkedIn and or on email, see who's downloading from your website, etc., and start to track and nurture those prospects through that hyper-personalized journey to get them to a point where they want a meeting, where they want to interact with you. And one thing that I will be sharing in a little while is the one document, which is where you can start to plan what the future you looks like. But right now, let's look at some automations that are simple, that would save you time. I'll just bring these up. So I'm showing you here two really simple automations. So prospect visits your web page and you've tracked them, you've got their IP address, or you've driven them to the web page via an email. So you've already captured that URL and or the domain, and you know who they are. Then you can set a time. So you can say, okay, let's reach back out in an hour, a minute, or a day, or 4 days. You decide. Yeah, and say, we thought you might be interested in this blog. And you don't say, we thought you might be interested in this blog because you've been on our webpage and downloaded this guide. Because that sounds a bit too big brotherish. We don't want to be doing that. We want to nurture them along in a nice, soft way. And again, we can set the wait, the delay to go out and respond to them. So they read the blog that you've sent them. You get a notification back to say, XXX has just read the blog. And at that point, then here's the notification into the lead owner. And then we can start to say, okay, are you interested in a meeting, or should we have a conversation for the mutual benefit of you and me? It's a really simple explanation, that, but it just shows you actually that you can automate that process. You can use snippets, you can make it hyper relevant, hyper personalized, and get great conversion rates. This is a more simple one as well. So contact opens the email. You can add a lead score once they open that email, or once they've downloaded an ebook, etc. And once it gets to 100 points, you decide the score. It doesn't matter. It's not really relevant. But then you can add a tag within your CRM that says highly engaged contact, and then we can start to pass that to sales or to a LinkedIn nurture specialist to then get that meeting. Now I'm going to show you the next slide is a much more complicated process, because it's an elongated process that shows you a number of steps as we go through. So here we'll do our research into products and services, into their organization, and then we might send them a LinkedIn Connect with a note. We might just like and comment on one of their posts. We might like sending collateral that you know they've been reading. You can start to send them it saying, let me know what you think to this. Has it helped? And actually ask questions about them that actually then moves you forward to the next conversation that you're going to have, the next engagement. Now, you might say that you build up then to a crescendo point where you ask for the meeting. If you do this right, they'll be asking you for the meeting. You won't need to do all of that outreach. It will become demand generation. But it is about being omni-channel. It is about using all of the channels to influence, to be present in the awareness and consideration phase. For me, another great tool and another great solution by using automation is actually that if you look at this chart, it might look a bit busy to start with, but within your organization, you've got sales, you've got directors and senior partners, and you've also then got your account management team, your customer success team. And these bigger circles represent your client. And then these other smaller circles are the influencers, the people within that organization. And you've got different people with different relationships within those organizations. Well, if you know, as a brilliant example, when their birthday is, say, you can actually pre-populate all of that information in your CRM and set up an automation to send them a birthday wish, to send them a song or a little snippet or a GIF, and you don't have to worry about it. These people here that haven't been circled are not going to miss out because you've got all of the content, or you've got all of the information, the data within the CRM to help you drive that change and make sure that these people are engaged. Because at some point, this might be the buyer, but all these other people are going to influence them, and you need to keep them on side. I think it's Gartner a little while ago was saying that the purchase cycle now involves 5.7 people. So it's not one decision maker anymore. Now, the benefit of having brilliant content and writing content for specific groups, whether that's a head of IT or a sales director or a manager within operations, etc., is that they can all access it and they can all be influenced through that awareness and consideration phase. But use the technology to make your life simple. So the future you document allows you to start to map out what the proposition should be. It allows you to start to think about what pain points you are fixing, what solutions you are going to offer. And you should have a reasonably good grip of what that looks like within your organization. If you don't, there are organizations out there that will help you derive that, being start to create the content and then push that content out through all of the channels that are appropriate or available, and track it and measure it and monitor it and use that engagement as the next to drive the next engagement. I'm just going to stop there for a little while and just ask if anybody's got any questions. I'm just looking on my mobile to see all the questions coming in from either YouTube or LinkedIn Live. Bear with me. So what's the best way to find your perfect customer? So I've already answered this earlier on, but the best way for me in a B2B environment is to go on to Sales Navigator, put in your criteria, but also put in the criteria that you don't want and start to refine that search. And you'll end up with about 300 or 400, 500, maybe even thousands of people that fit your persona that you're targeting or want to target. And then use an enrichment tool to collect their email, their mobile numbers, etc., etc. So that's a piece of software and that's GDPR compliant, so that then you can start to target them, not just via LinkedIn, but through email, LinkedIn, mobile, text, and start pushing them emails to drive them to your site to interact with your content. And from there, you can influence them and nurture them to the point of becoming a customer. Shane. So Shane on YouTube, what is the number one benefit of digital sales and marketing in your opinion? How's it looking for organizations that still haven't gone digital? Well, I'm not going to lie. Sales and marketing in a digital space is crowded. I think sales is crowded and has been for a while. So you've got to make sure that what you are putting out into the market for people to interact with is really good, and spend time thinking about it. But above all, be out there. Yeah, in pursuit of perfection is one thing. Trying to attain perfection is another. You'll never do it. So as long as you're chasing pursuit of perfection, you're all good. The best thing for me in terms of the number one benefit for digital is actually that you can see the intent of the prospect, of the lead, and you can nurture them along. It's all about intent, ranked data. And if we can move them into that phase of where they have intent, then you can sell to them and you can close them. So what's stopping businesses from embracing digital tactics? I think there's a couple of things. I think there's a lot of traditional methodologies out there that are still very, very active. And I know that if you go onto websites for sales training, a lot of them, the methodology is really old-fashioned. The principle might be right, but they're pushing you down one channel. They're still pushing you to ring up on the telephone. And there's nothing worse than reaching out on the telephone on a cold call and having nothing to say other than talk about yourself. Because that's not what people are interested in. They want to talk about themselves, or they want to have an engaging conversation. You can't do that just from cold calling. You need to push out using content and looking at that intent. Can an established business survive without digital marketing? I'm going to say no, because audiences are online. They're doing their research. You go back to one of the first slides that I showed. In the old days, 10, 15 years ago, 5 years ago, even 3 years ago, pre-COVID, people would reach out to salespeople as a product specialist and ask for information. They don't do that anymore. They go online and they do their own research. You need to be present in that place, and that place is online. It is digital. Okay, so then established businesses survive without digital marketing. So it's the same question, essentially, in terms of what's stopping businesses embracing digital tactics. It's just about attitude. Yeah, because you can find the talent, you can outsource if you haven't got the time, or if you don't think that you can spend the effort of reaching out. In fact, I'll show you this next slide. So these are some of the things that you really should be doing. You should be creating and executing hyper-personalized conversational journeys on a daily basis with up to 75, and I would say that is a minimum target threshold, 75 engaging conversations. Now that takes a lot of effort, and you're using multiple channels. So it's printed, it's digital, it's compliant data, it's mining the data, creating the content, it's driving that demand and using the software to do it. That's what's holding people back. Maybe they're a little bit afraid of it, but reach out to a partner. You don't have to do it all yourself. We're a growing business and we're scaling. And in the process of that, we've built ourselves a team to create that content, to drive our SEO, to make sure that we're mining the right data, that we're GDPR compliant, and we're pushing that engaging conversation. I hope that makes sense. So what are the most popular technologies and strategies being used by sales and marketing teams? Well, I think we all know, everybody's trying to funnel through LinkedIn. They're just not doing it very well. Without Navigator, you can't possibly do a good enough search. Without other softwares to actually automate your workflow, the sales process, you can't be efficient. So you need to embrace those technologies and above all, write really good content that educates, that actually lets people know that you have a value so that they want to invite you to a meeting. They just want a coffee and a conversation with you to see what they can learn. And at least that way you're getting into that process, that sales process. But yeah, above all, be omnipresent. So we're at 45 minutes. I'm happy to take any more questions if anybody else is online and wanting to ask anything. Please reach out if you want to download or us to send you a download for the Future You document. We also have another document around customer journey mapping. And again, that may well be of use. I'm Stuart Payne. I'm the Strategy Director for Neo Technology, and we use omni-channel technology to drive revenue for our business, and I'm sharing this information with you. Essentially, Neo Technology solve solutions, business solutions with technology. We bring you global teams of technologists so that you can scale your organization at a much lower cost than you maybe would if you were just sourcing in country. So there's two benefits there. One is global talent, the best, and one is also a better hourly rate or a better cost. Just check for any last questions. I've got one just typing through now. So as I say, my name's Stuart Payne. I'm happy to help you. Just reach back out to me. And Shane, what would sales and marketing look like today if there had been no COVID? I think that we would have followed that same trajectory that technology and LinkedIn has had from a B2B sales and marketing perspective. I think they just would have been slower. So I think that process has sped up. And those that are out there online, nurturing contacts, getting to know people, I suppose it's a bit like online dating. Not that I've ever done it. I got married when I was 21. But these days, you know, you can go online. You can swipe left or right, depending upon what you like. B2B is the same, but it's more about the content rather than the way that you look, I hope, from my perspective. So, any more questions? No? Well, I hope that this was good for you. I hope it was insightful. I'm just going to bring up one last slide. Request the deck if you want to. But above all, reach back out to us if you want any more insights. We're happy to share. Okay, my name's Stuart Payne from Neo Technology. Thank you. Bye.